Blog Talk Radio.
And in those days there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. Some conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. That indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall in the works of our hands, all by just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past time elapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that God came in alien craft. They react in this way, they're so desperate for meaning and purpose, but satanic service, they know that they have evil motives. Am I making you nervous? I'm just scratching the surface. The signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. In the blink of an eye, all believers will be raptured. Anyone left receives a mark or the caption. This leader will arise, claim his origins are alien, possessed by Satan on the side of the Nephilim. Profess those who left held us back from evolving, and now that they're gone, we'll solve all of Earth's problems. The worship of any one God will be halted, evolving to gods and ourselves be exalted. They'll play on these lines, and in time they'll devise and arrive at a plan that will help hypnotize all the ones left behind, the spiritually blind. He's stolen their souls, now he's stealing their minds. It's already started, we're seeing the signs. Just study the word, prophecies all aligned. They'll chop off the heads of all those who fight at one earth, one world. Aren't you excited? The signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. Where will you be in the year 2012? Are they casting a spell they're not ready to tell? It's time to reveal what they tried to keep veiled. Pure evil they hail and they sell it so well. He fell from the heavenly realms where he dwelled, a once beautiful angel that tried to rebel. Expelled from the light into darkness and hell, now a serpent and snake with reptilian scale. He wears a disguise with angelic wings and mimics the truth with a lie so obscene. He always repeats the same thing he told Eve, that you'll be supreme, a king or a queen, that you can evolve to an enlightened being, a god of your own that can do anything. He feeds on our souls with this fraudulent scheme in so many ways, but it's all just the same. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near.
Why hide yourself with, creating UFO crafts and things like that? Why that deception if that's indeed what's going on?
The creatures figured out that there was one way that they could frighten mankind, and that is to present themselves as technologically superior beings from physical UFOs.
Why would they want to abduct human beings?
UFO abduction might not be caused by physical occupants, but from creatures living in perhaps what we would call another dimension.
Posing as occupants.
Yes, the same type of interfering, harassing, paraphysical creature in every culture worldwide.
And he said unto me, in the beginning when the earth was made, before the borders of the world stood, or ever the winds blew, before it thundered and lightened, or ever the foundations of paradise were laid, before the fair flowers were seen, or ever the movable powers were established, before the innumerable multitude of angels was gathered together, or ever the heights of the air were lifted up, before the measures of the firmament were named, or ever the chimneys in Zion were hot, and ere the present years were sought out, and or ever the invention of them that now sin were turned, before they were sealed that have gathered faith for a treasure, then did I consider these things, and they all were made through me alone, and through none other. By me also they shall be ended, and by none other. 4 Ezra, chapter 6, verse 1 through 6, the Apocryphal edition. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv. Shabbat Shalom to all the listeners and to those that will be joining us and gathering for fellowship and dialogue. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate all of you, and not just your support and for listening to the show and opening yourself to new possibility, but for the conversation and the answers and the questions that you share with not only me but amongst each other, especially those of you that have gathered on the FallenAngels.tv website that are sharing blogs and videos and music and shows and different posts, commentary that are encouraging one another and supporting one another and seeking, and especially for those of you that have been there for a while and have taken it upon yourself to encourage and to assist the new listeners and the new people that join up at the FallenAngels.tv website and that are new to a lot of the information that we have for years been sharing and talking about and speaking on and giving insight to one another upon. You are helping others in a way that you will never even realize, because of even though the internet does bring us together and gives us a platform to do these kind of things, where we may be in different parts of the world and never even have chance to meet each other face to face. And we are, anonymous to certain aspects because of that, which is both a good thing and also something that is not as tangible as far as friendship is concerned. But many of you, the stories that you've shared, the testimonies, being confirmation for one another, for a lot of those that have been, seeking answers to and just guidance and direction when it comes to many of the esoteric topics that we speak about, not only on this show, but in the website, with the articles that we share, and with the different things that we are focusing upon. It's reaching people that aren't even, on website, because many don't even join as members, but do come to the website even daily to read about the things that you are posting and sharing discussion upon, and also to come to just be given the links and to listen to our shows, because it's a wealth of information that has been gathered there. I definitely think it's unique in the amount of information and also the focus of the information of which we have been sharing for a number of years now, since even I believe it was 2005 when I first started FallenAngels.tv, and since that time thousands of you have come together and joined, and many have come and gone, but a lot have remained, and now it's a growing and a thriving network, and there's daily discussion on a number of different things, and it's just a beautiful thing to see for me as the webmaster, and seeing all of you utilize the platform, the network, in the way that it really should be used as a tool for the fellowship that we all share. And so I'm grateful to all of you, and to all of those that have not come and have not joined. There's no there's no charge, or there's everything is freely given. Myself and all those that are on site, we do ask that you answer a few profile questions, but other than that, everything is free of charge, and and also you can remain anonymous, because I know a lot of people are afraid, especially when they first wake up, afraid to have their name out there in any way connected to a lot of those things that are topics of discussion on the network. But I think especially now in this day and age, when so much of what we speak about is now mainstream, and with shows like Ancient Aliens and different programs on the History Channel and Sci-Fi and all these different television shows and movies that have come out on these topics, that have shared what most have believed and thought of as fairy tale, children's stories, fantasy about the fallen angels and the presence of giants. Other shows like America Unearthed, where a lot of even giant bones. There was one show where a farmer plowing his field had found bones that were connected to an individual that was over 9 foot tall, and he called the archaeological the head departments of archaeology and try to get them to take interest in these things. And a lot of those different organizations are controlled, and anything that goes against Darwin and the whole lie that has been forced upon the whole world, really, that's part of the strong delusion. And they teach this, in our schools. Kids are grafted into this belief system at an early age, and the entire educational system, from kindergarten, well, they don't teach about it in kindergarten, but from high school, junior high, even elementary school, if they teach any of that in there, it is started at an early age, and people accept it, are assimilated, indoctrinated into such belief without ever thinking about it for themselves or ever challenging the supposition of such claim. And only those that go to church and are taught through Sunday school, or that actually read their Bibles because there's not many of them anymore either. Even for those that do go to church, there's a lot of people that go to church but have never read their Bibles. And so whether anybody learns from the doctrine and from the gospel that, we're not evolved of monkeys or a missing link that is an ancestor of both, and most people are just brought into the whole lie and accept it without ever questioning, without ever having a second guess as to whether it may be true or not. And that's a large part of what is the Matrix. And a lot of lies that we, base as reality and our foundational belief systems are large part built up on lies that have been told to us over and over and over since we were kids, since we were even, growing up in elementary school and junior high and high school, and the things that we are taught, even a lot of what is American history and world history is just fabrication. The stories that are shared and told over and over by those that had the power of conquest in that day and age. And even what is most of wisdom and knowledge in the world today is based upon those, the Greeks and the Romans and those that were the conquerors of their day and age. A lot has been stripped out, decimated. Even the conquistadors, they, wiped out so much of what was the stories and the traditions of the Maya and the people of South and Central America. We don't have a lot of information from those that were the indigenous peoples of the world that were taken over, their wisdom and knowledge. It's been stripped away. And then there's been a concerted effort by the powers that be, by the church authorities, and also the political and the military powers of the world that are connected to and aligned with the Illuminati, and those that are of the line of Cain, that are connected to the pyramidal structure of the New World Order, which goes way further than back in time and history than just Adam Weishaupt and the European elitists, the Masons that got together in secret society and formed this organization and agenda for global conquest and world government, which this will lead into the topic of discussion for today, speaking about the prior times and the history of Atlantis and how that all ties into where we are now and where we find ourselves and how we came to be where we are, because so much information is now coming to light. Things, documents, scriptures, gospels that are thousands of years old that escaped the burning, the pillaging, and the decimation of cultures and peoples worldwide. That even, the Nag Hammadi collection, the codices which were found in 1946 and are thousands of years old, they are from a people, the Essenes, that were wiped out by the Romans. and that they had hidden their texts in jars of clay in the Judean desert for thousands of years, and that survived and made it to this present age in order to inform us of the mythologies and the histories of the world as a collective, as a people, humanity. And so we're going to talk a little bit about these things. And, there are no coincidences. Everything is for a reason. We are the last generation, and the Father wanted these things to come to light. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today are things that people have wanted to know about for thousands of years. And so, and I'm going to take it back even further, because a lot of people have asked me about, the time before the modern creation of Adam and Eve. And because, in the churches they teach the earth and all of history only goes back 7,000 years. And, most of the people of mainstream churchianity, they completely believe this. And if they don't, they find themselves at odds with, well, if what is being taught in the churches is wrong, does that mean that God really did not create us and that we really did evolve from some missing link or some monkey somewhere? And is the earth really thousands of years old or millions of years old? And is there, in the geological record in history, these cities that are even older than the supposed initial showing and the initial presence of Adam and Eve and the ancestors of modern man on the face of the earth. And so if they can't decide one way or the other, it challenges them as to whether they have any belief in God or not. And so for most, if they cannot accept that the earth is millions of years old, then they hold on to the belief that everything, only goes back 7,000 years, and that everything really began with Adam and Eve, and God had created us in His image, and that nothing else, even though science and all the different scientists of all the different professions that challenge the validity of the gospel in whatever way they do, whether they're right or wrong. And then if they don't believe that everything, that things are older than 7,000 years, then they have that whole dilemma of, well, if the gospel is wrong on the earth being millions of years old, is it also wrong on that there's a Father in heaven and that He has the only begotten Son? And so they can't decide one way or the other. And then if they do decide that, well, the earth has to be older than 7,000 years, and science can't be that far off, well, then does that mean that science is right and we are evolved of this missing link that unites the apes and humanity, even though we still have humankind and apes living on the earth today, and how they can believe that there's some link that unites us together, and that we evolved of them is just beyond me. But and so now the whole thing is, well, if we didn't evolve of this missing link, this ancestor of both ape and man, was it the ancient aliens that mated with the missing link, and that they are the responsible for the thing that we haven't been able to find, and that really that is the missing link, is that the ancient aliens were the ones that enabled us and formed us in their image and gave us the jump on evolution that brought us to where we are now, and then that would explain all things. And if that's the case, are the ancient aliens truly our gods, and the God, the Father, the Creator of us all, that we like to think of as being the one that formed all things? Is he an ancient alien? And so this is the thing that is being pushed upon people today. And so many are accepting this point of view and this perspective. Even scientists, that are atheists or agnostic and didn't believe in God as far as Yahuwah or Yahweh, the creator of us all, and completely deny that the Creator, has a son or an only begotten son, they are more apt and more willing to open themselves to the possibility that the ancient aliens are the key, the secret, the skeleton key for unlocking all the mysteries of the world and explaining things in such a way that scientifically it now makes sense to them. And they're more willing to concede to the notion that the ancient aliens are our creators. And there's also even many people that have been in this field. And when I'm talking about this field, I'm speaking about that have studied about the Nephilim, the giants, that have looked into esoteria, like the ancient alien quagmire, the conspiracy theories, things like that, alternative truth, that have read just incredible amounts of information as far as different religions, different wisdom texts, the Sumerian teachings, all of those stories that are connected to the ancient mythologies found worldwide. And I'm not going to name any names, but many of them, because many of you are well-versed and well-studied in a lot of these things that I'm making mention of now. Most of them have conceded to the belief and have accepted and believe that this explains all things, that the ancient aliens are indeed our creators, and that we were made in their likeness, and even if they believe in a Most High God, which a lot of them do, they don't believe in Yahushua as the Son, nor that Jesus Christ, Savior, Messiah. And if they do, they believe that he was one of them, one of the fallen angels, one of the Anunnaki, the ancient aliens, and that he's, just another ascended master or another one of these space brothers. And so, in my mind, and with all the things that I have studied and that I have gone through, because I've, spent almost 30 years now reading and studying and researching all of these things, with the discernment that I have and with the knowledge that I have been blessed to come to revelation on, it's my opinion that all of those things that I've just recently mentioned, that they are connected to the strong delusion that is here and is sweeping most up into, accepting the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, as I call them, as being the creators of humanity, as being the benefactors, and that they think that instead of Christ returning, they're returning, and that they're going to be the saviors of us all, and that they are going to set everything right. And, the Bible warns us that the strong delusion would be of such a degree, even the most elect would be deceived if it were possible. And when it cites the most elect, I think it's referring to those that are just well-researched, well-read, have spent years and decades reading all things, but yet they ready and so willing to accept that the fallen angels, which, the Bible and the Gospel, and especially the books of Enoch, have shown us that their interaction and their interdiction into the affairs of humanity have not been beneficial for us. And that they have, at every turn of the way, demanded blood and victim sacrifice, and that they are even involved in cannibalism and the drinking of blood of humanity. And how they could believe that these beings are the benefactors of humanity and that they're coming to save us in any way is just beyond me. So, today I'm going to take it all the way back to the war in heaven. And we're going to speak about how it got to be where it is now. That how the fallen angels, the Anunnaki, ended up being here, and how this ties in with gospel, because most, again, mainstream churchianity, they don't believe in any history older than 7,000 years, or any beings having been present on the planet before Adam and Eve. And so I'm going to try to help you to tie this together. And also I'm going to try to answer your questions too. So I am trying to watch and monitor the chat room Ephesians 4 and 5 asks, do you think that was a way of escape for Enoch amongst the devils? Oh, wait a second. Somebody is saying that Enoch was the son of Cain. No, the first Enoch was the son of Cain, but the second Enoch was of the line of Adam. The Enoch which we have the books Enoch 1 and the book of the secrets of Enoch, he was the seventh generation from Adam. His father Yared was the one that wrote about and warned the children of Adam to not fall away. And his name also speaks about the descent, gives allusion to the descent of the Watchers, which is a second incursion of holy angels. That another group of angels, which were holy watchers at the time of Yared, they were jealous of Adam, and having kind of tattletaled on him, told him that they would do even worse if they were in flesh form. And so they challenged him to put them into flesh form and to allow them to come to the earth, which he did. And they lusted after the daughters of Cain, and because they were in physical form, they were able to mate with the daughters of Cain, and they brought forth a race of giants. And this race of giants then became cannibals. They were known as the men of renown. We have all the stories of the Greek and Roman mythology citing the incredible things that they did and the strange nature of the hybrid monsters and creatures that they were warring against during their time and life and existence upon this planet. We also have the account of Berosus, which speaks about many of these same creatures having existed upon the planet. And so there is basis, there is reality, there is truth found in the strange nature of the mythologies of the found worldwide. And that once you begin to study them as an entire collection, as one body of work, you will be led to the truth that underlies them all. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be speaking about here today as well. And so, if you have questions, put them in the chat room. I'm not going to read a lot of scripture and wisdom text today. I'm just going to kind of tell you how it is, how it happened. But know that if you do want further detail and more information about the things that I'm speaking about, I cover all of this, all of these things in my fourth and my sixth book specifically, and that I elaborate on them further in my newest book, which should come to publication within months now. In the final stages of it as far as the overlay, and I did put on the Fallen Angels TV website the cover that was created by one of our members, Jared Allen, there at fallenangels.tv. And I want you to know I appreciate you, Jared, for your time and your effort in creating that image. And many people have given me just really good feedback on what you've done and the things that what I've already shared. But you can go to the website there and take a look for yourself. It shows Christ holding the world and calling forth, what will be the second resurrection, the harvest, the separation of the wheat and the tares, calling us back to our first estate. And he did an incredible job on that. But, anyways, let me kind of set this up. Going back to the war in heaven, the separation of light and darkness, and how the Anunnaki ended up being here on this planet. We're going to start with the introduction of Yahushua, and I cover this in both of my books, my fourth and my sixth, Lucifer, Father of Cain, which is my fourth book. Not as in great detail in my sixth book, Sons of God, Who We Are, Why We Are Here. I shed more light and I share a lot of those passages and scriptures which are connected to the revelation that I share within those books. So going back to the separation of light and darkness, which occurs on the second day, that will be the splitting of the imperishable worlds or the invisible worlds and the upper heavens from what came to be the visible world, the physical world, the material world, matter, and the place where we find ourselves now, the lower world, the lower heavens, the lower firmament. How all this occurred, how all it happened, to do with the introduction of the Son to creation, to even the sons of God, the morning star administration, as I call it. That there was a period of time, because everything, according to the book of the Secrets of Enoch, and to other scriptures like the book of the Bee, that speak about how the sons of God were created on the first day, and that Christ, as the original morning star, because he is the true morning star, he pre-existed with the Father, and that the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, they together as a Trinity, representing both the male and female aspects of creation, that everything before it came to be individualized in different form and different personas, that initially everything together was one force, one unified consciousness, light, and everything was gathered as a collective in that one state of being, which you can call God, together. That all of us also were part in, you know how scientists say that energy cannot be created and cannot be destroyed, that it just transforms and, takes on different embodiments. That's what I'm speaking about. That even this would be, that one force prior to the Big Bang, if you want to call it that. And so when the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, decided to expand outward into all things, then that unified force, that oneness, that was what I call the great mystery or the giant family, that it was God expanding self, because He and the Son and the Holy Spirit were all that existed, and we are created from the fabric of who they are, that all things in creation are created from the fabric of God. And so when God decided to create time and space and difference and change and movement of light and energy and vibration and frequency, God decided to expand Himself outward to become all things so that He could experience life and being through these various means, forms, and measures. And so that's when, beginning with the separation of light and darkness and what the scientists call the Big Bang, the explosion of energy outward into what became the visible universe. This is when that occurred and that happened. But there was a time before that explosion happened. There was a time, a momentary pause, a silence that occurred, which is spoken about in the book of B. And it talks about how in this time of pause, we as the sons of God and all of the angels, we had thought. We had the capacity to wonder and to contemplate. And in those moments of pause, we had contemplation as to whether we were pre-existent beings, whether we were, what had created us and how we had come to be. And then we know about in Genesis, it says that the Father declared, "Let there be light," and that there was an audible voice that made that declaration. And when that declaration was issued, that Christ, as the light of the world and of the universe, as the light which gives even the stars their shining and their visibility. And it was that light which brought the broad expanse of creation into visibility from what was the darkness of that momentary pause. That was the embodiment of the Son. That the Son was introduced to the creation as the light of all things. And that it was His force, His persona, that brought all things into being able to be seen. And so that moment is what is when we were introduced to our Savior, when we were introduced to who would be the ruler of the universe, the King. And in that moment, Lucifer, as the first created archangel, I explain all this in my book, he decided that he wanted to be like the Most High. He wanted to be like the Son. He wanted to have authority. He wanted to be worshipped. And he decided he was not going to be a servant. He wanted to be a ruler. He wanted to be the head honcho, and to give the decisions, to enforce his will within the creation. And so there was this insurrection, there was this rebellion, there was this grand war which took place, that 1/3 of the angels of the Most High, because Lucifer has no angels of his own. Those that joined him in rebellion, they are now known as his angels, but we are all angels of the Most High. That all of us, when created, were created to worship the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And really, there's no other true gods but them. There are those that parade as gods, that claim to be gods, and that declare themselves as gods, but they are not. They are only angels. The fallen angels, the Anunnaki, the archons, whatever it is that you want to call them, they are not gods and goddesses. They are angels. And so, just to clear that up. And so a third, he went to all of them, and the Father and the Son allowed this. It allowed him to challenge their authority, and they gave him such glory that some of the angels believed that he had chance to defeat and overthrow the Son. But really, he never had chance, because he was created by them just as we all were. He never had chance. So anyways, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to kind of move through this quickly. And so after the war in heaven, they were cast out from the upper heavens, cast down to the lower heavens. There's speaks about on the fourth day how there would be a separation of the firmaments. On day 3, there was a division of the firmaments, the upper waters from the lower waters. And I explain in my book about this particular event, because this event is cited by the Enuma Elish and cited by many of the ancient historical texts and cultures worldwide that speaks about the capture of Nibiru into the solar system, and how the fallen angels were present upon this planet. How they got to be there is still undetermined, something that we won't know until we all, get back to our first state and are able to ask our Father or the Son or the other angels that have been immortal since, the first day, and that have watched and been witness to and never had to drink from the cup of forgetfulness. Ask them about all of that time and space. But going by what we have available to us from the Sumerian text and from their own writing, that the old ancient stories talk about the capture of Nibiru and how this planet was responsible for the destruction of Tiamat, and that Tiamat used to be what is the earth now. And it also speaks about how, it talks about in Genesis how the earth was once had a water canopy, once was covered in clouds, and the skies above could not be seen, as far as the sun, the moon, and the stars. That there was this border cloud, this bank of clouds that encompassed the earth so that the sun could not even radiate down to the planet's surface, and how it was a watery planet to such a degree that no land could be found or seen, that it was one ocean which encompassed the whole, the entire planet. It speaks about this in Genesis, that even in Jeremiah, how there was a time when there was no man to toil the earth, and that the land had not even been seen. Well, going back to that ancient story, if you take it into account, and the Enuma Elish and the other stories of how creation came into being, you can tie that together with what is cited in Genesis, where it speaks about how the earth became null and void and how it was destroyed once and recreated. Well, this recreation, this tohu wabohu, Nibiru was responsible for that destruction and recreation. And of course, it's at the will of the Father and the Son that this event was allowed to happen. But this event is historically remembered and is historically cited as being that which created the earth anew. And so when Nibiru, or one of the moons of Nibiru, struck Tiamat, which was the old earth, that's when the earth was destroyed, and the firmament of the earth, as far as that bank of clouds, that was destroyed. The water canopy was destroyed, and one of the sides of the earth, where the Pacific Ocean is now, was gutted, and the earth was split into two halves. And when it was destroyed, it was, sheared by this moon. The earth then was repositioned, because it used to be on the outside of Mars. The earth and Mars shifted positions, and the earth was put into its new orbit and its new rotation. And it was then that the land masses appeared, and it was then that the sun actually could shine down on the earth, and that the sun and the moon and the stars could actually be seen. And so it speaks about how they were created later. In my opinion, it shows that they were actually able to be seen after the recreation of the earth. And then it talks about in Genesis how the sun and the moon and the stars would be signs for seasons and for tracking the different seasons, and that they would be used for signs in the heavens, and that the calendars and all that would be able to track the celestial movement in our place within this solar system and also within this galaxy. And it was after that destruction, long after, because this is an ancient event, but it was long after the destruction of the earth that the fallen angels arrived here and established Eridu, which was the first colony. Okay, so when Nibiru, and it speaks about this, and I give elaboration on this in my 6th book, Sons of God. This is day 3 and day 4 according to the Genesis timeline. And when Nibiru became the 12th planet of this solar system and was captured and put into an orbit where it actually crosses between the inner and the outer planets. When the moon of Nibiru destroyed the Earth, that's what created what the Sumerians called and referred to as the hammered bracelet. And the hammered bracelet is the asteroid belt. And the asteroid belt and the comets and even the rings around Saturn and some of the other planets, because they also have rings. Those rings are the debris field from this ancient destruction of what is referred to in the mythologies as the dragon Tiamat. And that Tiamat, when it was destroyed, and of course this is all the will of the Father and the Son, that when Tiamat was destroyed, the Earth then was placed in the orbital rotation that we now find ourselves in, and that once the water canopy was destroyed and once land appeared and Earth was recreated, this became a breeding ground for what would be the multiplicity of life, according to how the Father and the Son endeavored for life to begin, that all the conditions were made right, and the next chapter of what was the history of the universe, the history of creation, the next chapter, the focus would be upon this planet, Earth, and that brought us to where we could begin what would begin the natural cycles and evolution, because a lot of things are, evolving, but the Father and the Son created all the creatures, placed them here upon the planet, created pre-Adamic humanity as well, and allowed life to begin here on this planet. And that the grand experiment of what is the incredible presence of life and the beauty and the existence of all the different creatures that are found on this planet, all that began way back then. And so it was later, after an untold amount of time, who knows how many, it could be millions of years, I can't tell you. But all I can tell you is that this event, which created the Earth, destroyed the water canopy, made the necessary circumstances for the Father and the Son to create life as it was back then, that the Sumerians, even in their own lore, even in their own traditions, they cite in their own history about how this event was even in their ancient past. And so after a long period of their being part of this solar system, Nibiru being part of the solar system, and all of the other planets having settled into their current orbits, the current rotations, and the solar system having come to be, as far as the different planets and the way they interact with each other, and the influence of Nibiru upon all of the other planets of the solar system, all that kind of settled down to where there wasn't this destruction every time Nibiru would in its closest aspect to the sun, it would cross through the inner and the outer planets. Well, according to the Sumerian tales and their own mythology, there was war even on their own planet, and that they were undergoing ecological disaster, and that they had evolved into physicality, that they had also taken form much like, not necessarily humanity, but what are the Nakash, what are cited as the Nakash, as these dragon-like beings, that they had taken on form as what we call the feathered serpents. And that when there was war on their own planet and they're having gone through this ecological disaster, every time they came close in orbit to the sun, that the sun's rays would burn and kill a lot of their own creature and peoples, that the scientists of their planet figured out a way to distract and to diffract the sun's rays by gathering gold and crushing it into powder form, and then putting it into the atmosphere of their own planet, and then in that way they were able to refract the sun's rays. And so, again, a lot of, we can only go by what the Sumerian teachings and what they say to kind of fill in the gaps. And again, even though, I'm telling you that this is how it is according to a lot of the mythologies and the text, the ancient texts that we have available, this is all really still speculation. We will not know about how it is that they came into being as far as physical form, and why it was that they came to be embodied in feathered serpent form. We do know that they were, seraphim angels, and that the seraphim angels were also reptilian-like in aspect. And whether, it was that over time and involvement that their bodies slowed in vibration and frequency, and they took on more physical form. We don't know how all that came to be and how it is, but we do know, according to the cuneiform text and to their own depictions of themselves, that they were reptilian winged beasts, like the dragons of old that are in our mythology, and that even the ancient cultures and peoples of the world today, when they cite that their wisdom and knowledge to them by, these, what, the History Channel refers to as the ancient aliens, we can only take them by their own word and by what they left and what they said. And so I'm just telling you what they said and tying the stories together in a way that seems plausible as far as understanding how all of it ties and connects together. But we really won't know until we're brought back to our first state and can ask the Father and the Son directly. But however, and so they needed gold, which was not plentiful on their own planet. And so they had to seek other places to gather this particular material. And it wasn't until one of their ancient kings, one of these Nibirian kings, named Alalu, he broke through the asteroid belt by utilizing weapons of mass destruction, what we would call weapons of mass destruction, that he was able to open a path through the asteroid belt, which had always, since the time of the recreation of the Earth, the asteroid belt served as a barrier preventing the Anunnaki, and I would say any culture or civilization, from coming through and being able to investigate the inner planet. And so they were limited until this time with being able to explore the outer planets and to gather substance and material from them, but they were not able to enter into what were the inner planets or the lower firmament, the lower waters. But once Alalu broke through, he sent a message, and according to the story, they had communication systems which allowed them, even from the Earth, to communicate with their own kind on their own planet Nibiru, which is just amazing if you think about how humanity has a difficult time even speaking to those that are on the dark side of the moon. But their technologies were much greater than ours, even before the modern creation of Adam and Eve, that their wisdom and their technologies far surpass even where we are and what we have come to knowing today. There's a question from the chat room. Cindy is asking, I've been wondering about the Queen and the Vatican hoarding all that gold. Do you suppose they intend to offer to their ancestors? Okay, it's my opinion that because now, gold is so valuable, it is limited in quantity, even though it's found in abundance here on the earth. Gold and silver and precious metals, they have since ancient and historical times been linked to true wealth, and that they have held a degree of in connection to wealth and what we think of as wealth, and that the elites of the world today, that they are busy buying up a lot of what is the available gold, silver, platinum, copper, even those precious metals which are in limited supply, not just because the Anunnaki, they were able to, even in the ancient past, to stabilize their own atmosphere, and that they mined a lot of it. But it's my opinion that the elites of the world today are hoarding such substance in order to corner the market on wealth, and that if they do intend to, offer it like the Mayans and the other cultures of the world today did in the ancient past, offering up, gold and precious metals and things like that. Like Lake Titicaca, supposedly there's a lot of gold at the bottom of the lake, which, the Mayan priesthood offered to their what are the fallen angels, the ancient aliens, back in that day and age, that they're not necessarily doing that for that purpose now. That it's more about hoarding things that will hold assets and wealth and the value of such wealth, and that at a time later, which could be even tomorrow, that we're at a point in time now that the markets are going to be crashed, that paper money will be decimated and the use of it outdated, and at that time metals, gold, silver, platinum, that all of those will increase in value at an astronomical rate, and that money will then have to be recalibrated, and if they do issue paper money, that it will have to be formed and based on something that truly has wealth, as money used to and had once been. Because the paper money used to be certificates of deposit and were representative of somebody having deposited somewhere gold or silver or something of that nature that truly has value, and rather than having to trade the gold or those precious metals and to put themselves at risk of having to carry things like that around, those back in the olden days, they began to trade these certificates of deposit, and they used that as money, and those certificates could then be turned in for those base metals. But now, today, like the American dollar, it's based on the faith and goodwill of the American people. And it has no true value or wealth connected to it. And so it's a giant scam by the Freemasons, because it is the secret societies that hijacked America, and that were able to use the strength of this economy and of its people in order to issue these Federal Reserve notes, which have no real value, no inherent value, other than they are used by the American people, and we use them as money. And eventually the whole world came to accept this as money, but there's really no true wealth connected to them. Monopoly money and Federal Reserve notes are the same kind of thing. So, anyway, because we're running out of time. So when the Anunnaki eventually came here to the planet, and according to their text and their stories, they arrived here 430-some thousand years ago. And that, according to the Sumerian Kings list, Mantheo, Berosus, the first of those Anunnaki that arrived here, they ruled over and they created 5 different cities. Eridu was the first one, Bad Tabira, the other one was near Baalbek, Shurapak, what was the other 2 named? One was started with an N, the other one started with a U, I believe. But anyways, they created these 5 cities, and their initial establishment of these 5 cities back then was in order to gather and to send back gold. And so a lot of the temples and the pyramids and the pyramidal complexes back in that day and age that were created by them served the purpose of funneling and in the whole mining process of curing the rock and splitting off the gold from this particular rock, and then in sending it back, storing it and sending it back back to Nibiru. And so when they established the first colonies, that was the basis for their establishment of those particular cities. And they did set them in alignment according to those constellations and those areas of the celestial skies which were important to them. And so it seems like, according to their own stories and their own tales, that they are from Orion initially, and that they came to be living on Nibiru, and that the Father and the Son long ago allowed Nibiru to become part of this solar system, and that it was its capture that also led to the recreation of the Earth and the basis for life as we find it now. And that certainly there have been many eras and epochs and parts of history which have led us to where we are now. And it's also my opinion that even our ancestors, Adam and Eve, when they were first created by the Father and the Son, that they were of more giant proportion, of more incredible size and stature. And that's why it describes in the Bible that Adam and Eve and the ancestors of them leading up until the time of Noah, that they lived 1,000-year lifespans. It's my opinion that that the reason they lived, these 1,000-year lifespans is that they were more, greater in proportion and size than humanity in this day and age. And that it was after the flood of Noah's day that the Father and the Son decided to resize not only the giants of old, because they were already in presence upon the earth, and that their lifespans were also reduced to that of 500 years, according to the second book of Enoch, but that even humanity would be of lesser proportion, and that our lifespans would also be reduced to 120 years. And so the eras of history and the stories that are connected with it, once we know the truth of all that, it's going to be incredible. The things that we're even coming to know now are incredible in aspect, but to be able to know and understand our prehistory as humanity and the history of the earth and the history of creation and how all of it came to be what it is now, it's going to be an incredible tale to tell. It's going to be fantastic to listen to, and we've got a lot to talk about when we finally make it back home and back to our first estate. And can you just see us all gathered together in fellowship with those that made it, the elect and the righteous, and being able to have a Q&A with the Father and the Son, and to ask them about all the things that we don't know about, even as to the history of the fallen angels and the details of the war in heaven, the things that Lucifer and the fallen angels were up to before they found themselves on Nibiru, and before Nibiru became a planet that was captured by the solar system. I mean, there's so much to know and to ask, and so much that that has been left out and that we are not privy to. We only know a little bit, just a minute little bit of the unfolding of creation and how all things got to be what it is now. And so I'm looking forward to being able to be like a kid again. You know how kids are just want to know and ask questions about everything. That's what it's going to be like to be in the presence of the Son and to ask about whatever it is that we want to know about. It's going to be an amazing thing. We are running out of time, so I just want to remind everybody that I'm doing a show now on Revolution Radio on Tuesday nights. You can find us at freedomslips.com Tuesday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. That I haven't, the Hijacker, which I used to do his shows 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. midnight every night on Wednesdays, that he is taking a brief sabbatical, and so I'm no longer doing that with him, but that I've been asked to do my own show, and it's been an incredible success, and we've had a great following there, and so I appreciate those of you that have joined us, and please do if you have not. And I just pray that all of you are blessed in discernment and revelation, that the Father and Son watch over all of us, keep us all safe, and help us to do what we can to better and greater our relationship with them. In Yahuwah Yahushua's name I pray. God bless all. Good night. none other. 4 Ezra, chapter 6, verse 1 through 6, the Apocryphal edition. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv. Shabbat Shalom to all the listeners and to those that will be joining us and gathering for fellowship and dialogue. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate all of you, and not just your support and for listening to the show and opening yourself to new possibility, but for the conversation and the answers and the questions that you share with not only me but amongst each other, especially those of you that have gathered on the FallenAngels.tv website that are sharing blogs and videos and music and shows and different posts, commentary that are encouraging one another and supporting one another and seeking, and especially for those of you that have been there for a while and have taken it upon yourself to encourage and to assist the new listeners and the new people that join up at the FallenAngels.tv website and that are new to a lot of the information that we have for years been sharing and talking about and speaking on and giving insight to one another upon. You are helping others in a way that you will never even realize, because of even though the internet does bring us together and gives us a platform to do these kind of things, where we may be in different parts of the world and never even have chance to meet each other face to face. And we are, anonymous to certain aspects because of that, which is both a good thing and also something that is not as tangible as far as friendship is concerned. But many of you, the stories that you've shared, the testimonies, being confirmation for one another, for a lot of those that have been, seeking answers to and just guidance and direction when it comes to many of the esoteric topics that we speak about, not only on this show, but in the website, with the articles that we share, and with the different things that we are focusing upon. It's reaching people that aren't even, on website, because many don't even join as members, but do come to the website even daily to read about the things that you are posting and sharing discussion upon, and also to come to just be given the links and to listen to our shows, because it's a wealth of information that has been gathered there. I definitely think it's unique in the amount of information and also the focus of the information, of which we have been sharing for a number of years now, since even, I believe it was 2005 when I first started FallenAngels.tv. And since that time, thousands of you have come together and joined, and many have come and gone. But a lot have remained, and now it's a growing and a thriving network, and there's daily discussion on a number of different things, and it's just a beautiful thing to see for me as the webmaster, and seeing all of you utilize the platform, the network, in the way that it really should be used as a tool for the fellowship that we all share. And so I'm grateful to all of you and to all of those that have not come and have not joined. There's no, there's no charge, or there's, everything is freely given. Myself and all those that are on site, we do ask that you answer a few profile questions, but other than that, everything is free of charge, and and also you can remain anonymous, because I know a lot of people are afraid, especially when they first wake up, afraid to have their name out there in any way connected to a lot of those things that are
Blog Talk Radio.
And in those days there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. That indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall in the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past time elapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that God came in alien craft. They react in this way, they're so desperate for meaning and purpose, but satanic service, they know that they have evil motives. Am I making you nervous? I'm just scratching the surface. The signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. In the blink of an eye, all believers will be raptured. Anyone left receives a mark or the caption. This leader will arise, same as origins are alien, possessed by Satan on the side of the Nephilim. Profess those who left held us back from evolving, and now that they're gone, we'll solve all of Earth's problems. The worship of any one God will be halted, evolve into gods and ourselves be exalted. They'll play on these lines, and in time they'll devise and arrive at a plan that will help hypnotize all the ones left behind, the spiritually blind. He's stolen their souls, now he's stealing their minds. It's already started, we're seeing the signs. Just study the word, prophecies all aligned. Now chop off the heads of all those who fight at one earth, one world. Aren't you excited? The signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. Where will you be in the year 2012? Are they casting a spell they're not ready to tell? It's time to reveal what they tried to keep veiled. Pure evil they hail and they sell it so well. He fell from the heavenly realms where he dwelled, a once beautiful angel that tried to rebel. Expelled from the light into darkness and hell, now a serpent and snake with reptilian scale. He wears a disguise with angelic wings and mimics the truth with a lie so obscene. He always repeats the same thing he told Eve, that you'll be supreme, a king or a queen, that you can evolve to an enlightened being, a god of your own that can do anything. He sees on our souls with this fraudulent scheme in so many ways, but it's all just the same. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near.
Why hide yourself with, creating UFO crafts and things like that? Why that deception if that's indeed what's going on?
The the creatures figured out that there was one way that they could frighten mankind, and that is to present themselves as technologically superior beings from physical UFOs.
Why would they want to abduct human beings?
UFO abduction might not be caused by physical occupants, but from creatures living in perhaps what we would call another dimension.
Posing as occupants.
Yes, the same type of interfering, harassing, paraphysical creature in every culture worldwide.
And he said unto me, in the beginning when the earth was made, before the borders of the world stood, or ever the winds blew, before it thundered and lightened, or ever the foundations of paradise were laid, before the fair flowers were seen, or ever the movable powers were established, before the innumerable multitude of angels was gathered together, or ever the heights of the air were lifted up, before the measures of the firmament were named, or ever the chimneys in Zion were hot, and ere the present years were sought out, and or ever the invention of them that now sin were turned, before they were sealed that have gathered faith for a treasure, then did I consider these things, and they all were made through me alone, and through none other. By me also they shall be ended, and by topics of discussion on the network. But I think, especially now in this day and age when so much of what we speak about is now mainstream, and with shows like Ancient Aliens and different programs on the History Channel and sci-fi and all these different television shows and movies that have come out on these topics that have shared what most have believed and thought of as fairy tale, children's stories, fantasy about the fallen angels and the presence of giants. Other shows like America Unearthed, where a lot of even giant bones. There was one show where a farmer plowing his field had found bones that were connected to an individual that was over 9 foot tall, and he called the archaeological the head departments of archaeology and try to get them to take interest in these things. And a lot of those different organizations are controlled, and anything that goes against Darwin and the whole lie that has been forced upon the whole world, really, that's part of the strong delusion. And they teach this, in our schools. Kids are grafted into this belief system at an early age, and the entire educational system from kindergarten, well, they don't teach about it in kindergarten, but from high school, junior high, even elementary school, if they teach any of that in there, it is started at an early age, and people accept it, are assimilated, indoctrinated into such belief without ever thinking about it for themselves or ever challenging the supposition of such claim. And only those that go to church and are taught through